The rope bit into Magnolia's wrists as the auctioneer's gavel cracked like thunder above the jeering crowd. "What am I bid for this murderous little wildcat?" His voice boomed across the dusty town square of Brimstone Hollow. Sunset. But first, who wants to own her final hours? Bids flew like bullets. $5, $10, $15. Magnolia held her chin high despite the bruises blooming across her cheekbones. Despite the false charges of killing old Cornelius Wickham, that had landed her on this platform. The townspeople's hungry eyes devoured her defiance, their bloodlust thick as summer heat. $25, shouted Mortimer Grendel, the town's most notorious brute, his gold teeth glinting. "I'll make her last day memorable." The crowd erupted in cruel laughter. Magnolia's heart hammered against her ribs, but she refused to show fear. She'd rather die with dignity than beg these vultures for mercy. 30, 40. Then a voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk deep, commanding, dangerous. $100. The square fell silent. Every head turned toward the tall figure emerging from the shadows of the saloon. Caspian Knight Rider stepped into the blazing afternoon sun, his black duster billowing behind him like storm clouds. Silver spurs sang against the wooden planks as he approached the platform, his ice-blue eyes never leaving Magnolia's face. $100, he repeated, his hand resting casually on the pearl handle of his Colt .45. Cash. Auctioneer Tobias Grimm's Adam's apple bobbed nervously. Everyone knew Caspian's reputation, fastest draw in 3 territories, with a past darker than midnight and a heart supposedly colder than winter stone. He'd ridden into Brimstone Hollow 6 months ago and kept to himself, but the whispers followed him like tumbleweeds. That's a mighty fine bid, Mr. Knight Rider," Grimm stammered. "Anyone care to challenge? I challenge more than his." "Bid," Mortimer snarled, his meaty hand dropping to his gun. "I challenge his right to breathe." The crowd scattered like spooked cattle as Mortimer's weapon cleared leather. But Caspian moved like liquid lightning. His Colt appeared in his hand as if by magic, the barrel kissing Mortimer's forehead before the bigger man could even cock his hammer. "Your move," Caspian whispered. Mortimer's gun clattered to the ground. The smell of his fierce sweat poisoned the air. "The lady's mine," Caspian announced, holstering his weapon with practiced ease. He pulled a leather pouch from his vest and tossed it to the trembling auctioneer. The coins clinked like tiny church bells. "Cut her loose." "Oh, wait, just a cotton-pickin' minute." Sheriff Beauregard's skulls pushed through the crowd, his star glinting on his vest. "This here's a convicted murderer. She hangs at sunset, and no amount of money changes that." Caspian's smile was razor-thin. "Then I reckon I bought myself for hours with a condemned woman. That's legal, ain't it, Sheriff?" Skull's jaw worked like he was chewing nails, but he nodded grudgingly. The law was the law, even when it stank worse than a dead skunk. As Grimm cut Magnolia's bonds with shaking hands, her eyes met Caspian's. Lightning passed between them, a spark that promised either salvation or damnation. "Why?" she whispered. As he helped her down from the platform, his answer was lost in the desert wind as he swept her onto his horse and spurred toward the horizon. Leaving Brimstone Hollow, choking on their dust, Caspian's black stallion, Tempest, carried them across. The scorched earth like vengeance itself. Magnolia clung to his broad shoulders, feeling the iron-hard muscles beneath his shirt, breathing in his scent of leather and gunpowder, and something indefinably masculine that made her pulse quicken despite their desperate circumstances. "Where are we going?" she shouted over the thunder of hoofbeats. "Somewhere safe," he replied, his voice vibrating through his chest. "Hold tight." They rode hard for an hour before he finally reined Tempest to a halt beside a hidden canyon where ancient cottonwoods cast cool shadows over a crystal spring. Caspian dismounted first, then reached up to help her down. His hands spanned her waist completely, and when her feet touched earth, she found herself pressed against his chest, looking up into those storm-colored eyes. "Thank you," she breathed. He stepped back abruptly, as if her touch burned him. "Don't thank me yet. We've got 3 hours before they expect me back with your body." The harsh words hit like slaps, but Magnolia lifted her chin. "You think I killed Cornelius Wickham?" "Doesn't matter what I think," Caspian began, unsaddling Tempest with efficient movements. It matters what I can prove. And what can you prove? He paused, his hand stilling on the leather. That Cornelius Wickham died of poison, not a gunshot like they claimed. That Sheriff Skulls and Judge Morticia Blackheart are in cahoots with Wickham's nephew Jeremiah to steal his land claims. And that you walked into their trap like a lamb to slaughter. Magnolia's knees nearly buckled. You know about Jeremiah? Know a lot of things. Caspian's voice was grim, including why you really went to see old Wickham that night. Heat flooded her cheeks. She'd been so careful. So secretive about her desperate plan to buy back her family's ranch with money earned in the most shameful way imaginable. How could this stranger know what even her closest friend didn't? He offered you $500 to spend one night with him, Caspian continued relentlessly. You were desperate enough to consider it because Jeremiah has been systematically destroying every decent job opportunity in town, forcing you to ward. ... other options. The word came out broken. But when you got there, Wickham was already dead. Jeremiah was waiting with Sheriff Skulls, and they had you exactly where they wanted. You caught with a corpse and no witnesses. Magnolia sank onto a fallen log, her strength finally deserting her. How do you know all this? Caspian knelt before her, his expression gentling for the first time. Because I've been hunting Jeremiah Wickham for 3 years. He killed my sister Serafina in Kansas using the same scheme, compromised her reputation, destroyed her chances. For honest work, then arranged for her to be murdered when she threatened to expose his operation. Your sister, ... was 17 years old and trying to save her sick mother. His jaw tightened. Jeremiah Wickham specializes in corrupting desperate women, then disposing of them when they become inconvenient. You're just his latest victim, understanding. Crashed over her like a cold wave. You didn't save me from kindness. You need me as bait. I need you alive and free to testify against him. Caspian's honesty was brutal. That doesn't mean I'll let you hang for his crimes. Magnolia studied his face, the sharp cheekbones, the mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, the eyes that held shadows deep enough to drown in. This man carried pain like other men carried guns, and it had shaped him into something, both dangerous and compelling. What if I refuse to help you? Then I'll still get you out of Brimstone Hollow alive. His voice was quiet certainty. But Jeremiah will keep destroying innocent women until someone stops him. The weight of decision settled on her shoulders like a lead cloak. In the distance, church bells chimed 4 o'clock. I'll do it, Magnolia said, her voice stronger than she felt. But I need to understand the plan. Relief flickered across Caspian's features before his mask of control slipped back into place. First, we need evidence. Jeremiah has been using Wickham's house as his base of operations. There'll be documents, their correspondence, bank records, maybe even records of his other victims. The house will be guarded. Not tonight. There's a victory celebration planned at the saloon. Half the town will be there, drunk on blood and whiskey, toasting your supposed execution. His mouth twisted bitterly. Perfect cover for breaking and entering. Magnolia shuddered at the thought of those people celebrating her death. But she pushed the horror aside. Survival required focus. What about the other half? The ones who don't attend? Sheriff Skulls will be there. He's the guest of honor. For capturing you, Judge Blackheart never misses free whiskey. That leaves just Jeremiah, and maybe 2 hired guns at the house. 3 against 2. I like those odds. She was surprised by her own boldness. Caspian's eyebrows rose. You can shoot? My daddy taught me before the fever took him. I'm not fast, but I'm accurate. She met his gaze steadily. I won't be dead weight, Mr. Knight Rider. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or surprise. It's just Caspian. He'll need more than shooting skills for what comes next. He moved to his saddlebags and withdrew a bundle of dark clothing. Put these on. We'll wait until full dark, then ride back to town. But first. He hesitated, an unexpected vulnerability crossing his features. What? There's something else you should know about tonight. About why I really bought you from that auction. Magnolia's heart began to race. What do you mean? Caspian looked away, his strong hands clenching and unclenching. When I first saw you on that platform, defiant as a wildcat, even with a noose waiting, wasn't just about Jeremiah anymore. It wasn't just about justice for Serafina Caspian. Reminded me that some things are worth fighting for beyond revenge. His voice was rough as sandpaper. Some people are worth saving just because they deserve to live free. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Magnolia found herself stepping closer, drawn by something deeper than gratitude or shared purpose. And now? Now I'm terrified that my feelings will get you killed. Finally looked at her, and the raw hunger in his eyes made her breath catch. I've spent 3 years thinking of nothing but vengeance. I don't know how to want someone for myself anymore. Maybe it's time you learned. The words hung between them, like a bridge neither dared cross. Then Tempest nickered softly, reminding them that time was slipping away like sand through an hourglass. Get changed, Caspian said roughly. We have work to do. As Magnolia disappeared behind the cottonwoods to don her disguise, she heard him, talking quietly to his horse. What do you think, boy? Am I losing my mind, or did I just find something worth living for? Tempest's answering whinny sounded almost like laughter. When she emerged dressed in dark pants and a shirt that smelled of Caspian's particular scent, his sharp intake of breath was audible. The clothes fit her curves like a second skin, and her long auburn hair was braided back for practicality. You look like trouble, he murmured. Good, she replied, checking the spare pistol he'd given her. Jeremiah Wickham has no idea what kind of trouble is coming for him. As the sun painted the western sky in shades of blood and gold, they mounted Tempest together. This time, when Magnolia wrapped her arms around Caspian's waist, it felt less like desperation and more like coming home. The ride back to Brimstone Hollow would determine whether they lived to see another sunset together. The celebration at the Red Dog Saloon was in full swing when they crept through Brimstone Hollow's back alleys. Drunken laughter and off-key piano music spilled into the night, masking the sound of their approach to the Wickham mansion. The grand Victorian house loomed against the star-scattered sky like a monument to greed and corruption. 2 guards at the front, Caspian whispered, his breath warm against Magnolia's ear as they crouched behind a rose trellis. 1 at the back. Door. Jeremiah's probably in the study. That's where Wickham kept all his business records. How do we get past them? Caspian's smile was predatory. We don't. You're going to walk right up to the front door and knock? Are you insane? Hissed, trust me. His hand found hers in the darkness, calloused fingers intertwining with her smooth ones. You're supposed to be dead. Remember? They'll be so shocked to see you that they won't think clearly. That's when I move. Magnolia's heart hammered against her ribs, but she nodded. What do I say? Tell them you escaped and came to make a deal with Jeremiah. Information in exchange for safe passage out of territory. And if they just shoot me on sight, they won't. Caspian's voice was steel-wrapped certainty. Jeremiah's too smart for that. He'll want to know how you escaped, what you know, who helped you. Greed will keep you alive long enough for me to act. She squeezed his hand once, memorizing the warmth and strength of it, in case these were their last moments together. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. But if it does, I want you to know, ... She hesitated, then plunged ahead. I've never felt safer with anyone than I do with you. Even facing death, even knowing we barely know each other, it has to mean something. Caspian's other hand cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. It means everything, he said quietly. And it's why we're both walking away from this alive. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of desperation and promise, brief but searing enough to brand itself on her soul. Then he was pushing her gently toward the front of the house. Give me 2 minutes to get in position, he murmured. Magnolia forced herself to walk slowly up the cobblestone path, her hands steady on the pistol hidden beneath her dark jacket. The 2 guards straightened as she approached, their faces comical masks of shock. Well, I'll be damned, breathed the taller one, a scarred man with tobacco-stained teeth. Ain't you supposed to be crow food by now? Slight change of plans. Magnolia replied coolly. I need to speak with Jeremiah Wickham. Business proposition. The guards exchanged glances. Boss ain't expecting no visitors, the shorter one said. Especially not dead ones. I'm very much alive, and I have information he'll want to buy. Duh. She kept her voice steady, despite the terror clawing at her throat. Tell him Magnolia Rosewood knows who really killed his uncle and where to find the witness who can prove it. Got their attention. After a whispered conference, the tall guard disappeared inside while his partner kept a gun trained on her. Minutes stretched like hours before the front door opened again. Jeremiah Wickham himself appeared on the threshold. Man in his 30s, with oil-slick hair and the kind of handsome face that hid a rotten soul. His expensive suit couldn't quite disguise the predator underneath. Well, he purred, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. The condemned woman returns from the grave. This is unexpected. A lot of things about tonight will be unexpected, Magnolia replied. Jeremiah's eyes glittered with malicious interest. Come inside, my dear. Let's discuss this fascinating information you claim to possess. As she stepped across the threshold, Magnolia caught a glimpse of movement in the shadows beside the house. Dabian was in position. The game was about to begin. The Wickham mansion's interior reeked of old money and fresh corruption. Jeremiah led Magnolia through hallways lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors, their painted eyes seeming to judge her every step. Oil lamps cast dancing shadows that made the walls appear to writhe with malevolent life. Whiskey? Jeremiah offered as they entered the study, a cavernous room dominated by a massive oak desk and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. After your miraculous resurrection, I'm fine. Magnolia positioned herself where she could see both the door and the window, just as Caspian had instructed. Let's get down to business. Straight to the point. I admire that in a woman. Poured himself a generous measure of amber liquid and settled behind his desk like a spider in its web. Tell me, how exactly did you escape the hangman's noose?
Out.
Someone helped me. She let just enough truth color her words to make them believable. Someone who knew I was innocent. Oh. And who might this mysterious benefactor be? That information comes with a price. Jeremiah laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, my dear. One word from me, and Sheriff Scholes will have you back on the gallows before dawn. But you won't do that. Magnolia forced confidence into her voice. Because I know things that could destroy you, starting with how you really killed your uncle. The whiskey glass froze halfway to Jeremiah's lips. Careful, Miss Rosewood. Accusations without proof are dangerous things. Arsenic poisoning disguised as a heart attack. She continued relentlessly. Slipped into his evening brandy over the course of weeks to make it look natural. You had access to his house, his trust, his daily routines. The perfect murder, except you needed a scapegoat for the fictional gunshot wound. Prove it. Your uncle's fingernails. Arsenic leaves traces that don't fade quickly. Magnolia was gambling now, praying that Caspian's research was accurate. More importantly, check his safe.
No?
I'll bet you haven't found all his documents yet, including the letter he wrote to his lawyer about changing his will.
Jeremiah's face
Went white as bleached bone. What letter? The one where he disinherits you for embezzling from his mining investments. The one where he leaves everything to the town orphanage instead? She smiled coldly. He suspected you were stealing from him. That's why you had to kill him before he could make it official. The study door burst open as the guard from outside stumbled in, blood streaming from his nose. Boss, there's someone. Caspian appeared behind him, like an avenging angel, his Colt pressed against the man's skull. Evening, Jeremiah. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important, Knight Rider. Jeremiah's voice was poison wrapped in silk. I should have known you were behind tonight's theatrics. You should have known a lot of things. Caspian shoved the guard toward the corner. It's like how Serafina Knight Rider was my sister. Right. Like how I've been tracking your operation for 3 years. Like how tonight's the night you pay for every innocent woman you've destroyed. Jeremiah's hand inched toward the desk drawer where he kept his derringer. Your sister was a whore who got what whores deserve. The words had barely left his mouth when Caspian's fist connected with his jaw in a devastating right cross. Jeremiah crashed backward into his chair, blood spraying from his split lip. That's for Serafina, Caspian snarled. This is for Magnolia. His left hook sent Jeremiah sprawling across the Persian rug. And this, Caspian continued, pressing his gun barrel against the man's forehead, "is for every other woman whose life you've poisoned. Wait," Magnolia said quietly. "Don't make yourself a murderer for him. He's not worth it." Caspian's finger trembled on the trigger. 3 years of rage and pain warred with the knowledge that she was right. Finally, he stepped back, holstering his weapon. "You're right," he said roughly. "He deserves to face justice properly." "You'll never prove anything," Jeremiah spat through his bloody teeth. "It's your word against mine, and I own this town." "Actually," Magnolia said sweetly, "it's your word against these." She pulled a stack of letters from inside her jacket correspondence she'd found in the desk drawer while the men were fighting. Financial records, payment schedules for bribes, and a very interesting confession letter to your uncle. Seems you couldn't resist gloating about your cleverness. Jeremiah's face crumpled with defeat. Outside, church bells began to chime midnight. Their desperate gamble had paid off. Dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold as Caspian and Magnolia rode out of Brimstone Hollow for the second time. Behind them, Sheriff Skulls sat in his own jail cell alongside Jeremiah Wickham and Judge Blackheart, awaiting the arrival of federal marshals who would ensure they faced real justice. The evidence they'd gathered had been overwhelming, not just the documents from Wickham's study, but also the testimony of 3 other women who'd found the courage to speak out once they learned they weren't alone. The corrupt conspiracy that had controlled the town for years was finally crumbling. "Where will you go now?" Magnolia asked, as they paused at a crossroads where 4 dirt paths stretched toward different horizons. Caspian was quiet for a long moment, his hands gentle on Tempest's reins. "I spent so long focused on revenge that I never thought about what came after. Now that it's over." He looked at her with those storm-colored eyes that had haunted her dreams. "I don't know who I am without the anger driving me." "You're the man who risked everything to save a stranger," she said softly. "The man who chose justice over vengeance when it mattered most. The man who gave me back my life and my freedom. And you're the woman who reminded me that some things are worth more than revenge." His voice was rough with emotion. "The woman who taught me to want something besides justice for the dead. What do you want now?" He dismounted and helped her down, his hands lingering at her waist. They stood close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his blue eyes, could count the dark lashes that framed them. "I want to build something instead of just tearing things down," he said quietly. "I want to wake up beside someone who makes me glad to be alive. I want to plant roots somewhere and watch them grow." His thumb traced her cheekbone with infinite tenderness. "I want all of that with you, if you'll have me." Magnolia's heart soared like a bird released from its cage. "Are you asking me to marry you, Caspian Knight Rider?" "I'm asking if you'd be willing to take a chance on a broken-down cowboy who's never been good at anything but fighting and shooting." His smile was uncertain, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "I don't have much to offer except a good horse, steady hands, and a heart that's been yours since the moment I saw you on that platform." "That's more than enough," she whispered, rising on her toes to kiss him properly this time, without the shadow of death hanging over them. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Caspian rested his forehead against hers. "There's a valley about 50 miles north of here. Green grass, clean water, good soil for farming or ranching. It's unclaimed land, free for the taking." "Sounds perfect." Magnolia smiled up at him. "We'll need to build a house. I'm handy with a hammer. And we'll need livestock. I know horses. We can learn the rest together. And we'll need—" She blushed prettily. "Well, children, to fill all those rooms we'll be building?" Caspian's answering grin was brilliant as sunrise. "I'm looking forward to working on that particular project." They remounted Tempest together, Magnolia settling into the circle of Caspian's arms where she belonged. As they rode toward their new beginning, the morning sun climbed higher, burning away the last shadows of their troubled past. Behind them, Brimstone Hollow grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely. Just another bad memory lost in the dust of yesterday. 5 years later, the Knight Rider Ranch stretched across the valley like a green jewel set in the desert's crown. The house Caspian had built with his own hands stood proud and welcoming, its white-painted walls and red roof a beacon of hope visible for miles. Corrals held the finest horses in 3 territories, while fertile fields promised abundant harvests. Magnolia stood on the wraparound porch, her hand resting on her rounded belly where their third child grew strong and healthy. Their twin boys, 4-year-old Justice and his younger brother Freedom, played in the yard with a litter of enthusiastic puppies. "Mama," Justice called, his dark hair gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Papa's coming." She looked toward the horizon and saw Caspian riding home from town, a familiar sight that still made her heart flutter with joy. He'd aged well in their years. Together, the harsh lines around his eyes had softened, and genuine smiles came easier now. The angry, driven man who'd saved her from the gallows had transformed into a loving husband and devoted father. He dismounted near the porch and swept her into his arms. Mindful of her condition, but enthusiastic in his greeting.
How am I beautiful?
"Wife and our little one today, growing bigger by the hour," she laughed, accepting his kiss with the easy affection of a deeply happy marriage. "How was town? Productive?" His eyes sparkled with mischief. "Judge Patterson sends his regards, along with some interesting news." "Oh." "Jeremiah Wickham died in prison last month. Pneumonia." Caspian's expression grew serious. "I thought I'd feel more satisfaction, but mostly I just feel ... empty. Like closing a book you finished reading years ago." Magnolia touched his cheek. Gently. "That's because you're not the same man who wanted revenge. You're the man who chose love instead. Best decision I ever made." Kissed her palm, then knelt to greet their sons who had abandoned their games to launch themselves at his legs. "Papa, we helped Uncle Nathaniel with the new horses." Freedom bubbled with excitement, his words tumbling over each other. "And Justice can already saddle Mercury by himself. Can he now?" Caspian ruffled Justice's hair with paternal pride. "Shh, maybe it's time we talked about getting you boys ponies of your own." Their whoops of joy sent the puppies into a frenzy of barking and tail dash wagging as the sun began its descent toward the western peaks. Painting the sky in familiar shades of gold and crimson, the Knight Rider family gathered on their porch. Caspian sat in his rocking chair with Magnolia on his lap, her head resting against his shoulder while their sons played at their feet. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up the wandering life for all this domesticity?" "Never." His answer was immediate and certain. "I spent years riding toward something I thought I wanted: revenge, justice, closure. Turns out I was really riding toward you, toward this, toward home." In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, a lonesome sound that once would have echoed the emptiness in Caspian's soul. Now it was just another voice in the desert symphony that sang them to sleep each night, a reminder of the wild places that had brought them together but no longer called to them. "I love you, Magnolia, Knight Rider," he murmured against her hair. "Duh. I love you back, Cowboy." She smiled sleepily. "Even if you did fight an entire auction crowd to win my heart." "Best investment I ever made," he chuckled. "Though next time I propose to buy someone's freedom, remind me to negotiate the price." "First, there won't be a next time," she said firmly. "You're stuck with just one rescued damsel, and she's not going anywhere." As twilight settled over their valley like a comfortable blanket, Caspian tightened his arms around his wife and watched their children play in the gathering dusk. The man who'd once lived for violence had found his peace in the laughter of innocence and the steady heartbeat of the woman he loved. Sometimes, the best victories weren't won with guns or fists, but with the simple courage to choose love over fear, hope over despair, and tomorrow over yesterday. In the end, that choice had saved them both.